Good evening, ladies. Jody here from Healing Journey. And this evening, I'm going to be talking about 3 foods that can be contributing to your anxiety, and you might not even know it. So, this is actually something that I talk a lot about in my online program called the Holistic Anxiety Fix, where we do a deeper dive into uncovering root causes of anxiety. And actually, foods can be one of those causes that's not often on people's radar when they think about anxiety. You know, a lot of the people I talk to when they think about healing anxiety, some of the things they're saying are barriers are because, they can't get a hold of their mindset very well. They can't shift their mindset. They can't control their thoughts. And so a lot of the thinking that follows that is I just need to be better at controlling my thoughts, or at, doing XYZ thinking strategy better, or at letting things worry me less. And while mindset is definitely a piece of the puzzle, it's only a piece of that puzzle, and there are many other things that can be at play. So, if this is you, if this is some of the things you're telling yourself, just let me know by liking this post. So that I can get a sense of whether or not that's something you struggle with. But I know for a lot of people, they're kind of stuck on, I just need to work on it from a mindset perspective. And actually, one of the major triggers for anxiety can be your diet. And so what people don't realize is there's this huge link between the gut and the brain. And if you're eating foods that are actually inflammatory to your system, you're going to be creating an immune response and an imbalance in your microbiome. And this is actually going to lead to experiences of anxiety. Part of this is because when you have that immune response, you're creating and generating inflammation within the body. The other thing is when you're eating unhealthy foods, you're really wrecking your microbiome. And when your microbiome becomes unbalanced, when there's parasites or bacterial infections, or simply you're wrecking your body's ability to absorb nutrients, all of this is going to be felt downstream, which includes experiences of symptoms of anxiety. So, eating and diet is one of the key things that you can do to address your anxiety. And this is what makes it pretty simple, because if you're, addressing your anxiety from a food perspective, then what that means is you literally change your diet. And you don't have to worry about, meditating all the time and using those techniques. Not that there's anything wrong with these techniques, but by coming at it at this angle, your approach is going to be slightly different. So I don't know if you have a sense of, what can be foods that you need to cut out. I know, some of you may or may not be aware, but the big one here is gluten. And I actually talked to somebody earlier today who said when she first heard of this link, she was like, what? Gluten? Like, come on, how is gluten related to my anxiety? And so I know there's a lot of hubbub about gluten, but the fact of the matter is gluten is one of the most inflammatory foods that you can put in your body. There's a couple of theories as to why. Nobody's really fully sorted it out. One theory is that, the grains actually have quite a bit of mold on them, and mold is a huge trigger for anxiety. It definitely was for my anxiety. But the second piece of it is because there's glyphosate actually sprayed on the grains right before they're harvested. So you're getting this glyphosate exposure, or that we've crossbred the gluten and now our body doesn't recognize it. But for whatever reason, gluten is one of the number one foods that I recommend that people cut out of their diet. And to give you an example of just how effective this is, I wanted to share with you a story of a client of mine who, was doing meditation. She was actually a yoga teacher, and she thought she was eating really healthy. And when we changed her diet to be anti-inflammatory, guess what happened? Within literally 7 to 10 days, her entire nervous system calmed down after she cut out the gluten and ate this anti-inflammatory diet, and her anxiety significantly decreased. So trust me when I say that this can absolutely be a missing link for you. The second food that is a big one is obviously dairy. And so oftentimes people know when they're dairy intolerant or lactose intolerant. And for me, that shows up on my skin. So when I eat dairy, it shows up on my face. But there might not be that direct correlation specifically to the moment you eat dairy and feeling that anxiety. But again, what's happening is you're creating general inflammation in the body and wrecking the gut. And so all of those things are very, very connected. We are not a piecemeal type of thing. So if you've cut out gluten or you've cut out dairy, let me know below. If this is something you're gonna cut out, I'd also love to know this. The next thing that you want to cut out is sugars, and in particular refined sugars. And how is this linked to anxiety? Well, I was again talking to somebody today who said that, as soon as they ate sugars, they could feel that anxiety come on. And this is actually the case for me. And what's actually going on underneath the surface is those sugars are feeding parasites or mold or candida, and all of those things can create anxiety in our bodies. And so what you're doing with the sugars is feeding your unwanted friends and then creating more imbalance and more microbiome issues and then furthering the inflammation in your body. So definitely cutting down on the sugars. An easy way to do that is to cut out sodas, to use more natural sugars, or stevia is actually one of my favorite replacements. So if you would like a gluten-free baking recipe that uses healthy sugar, I want you to put recipe in the comments below, and I will message you an incredible recipe that you can use to start yourself on your journey to moving through a diet change and getting yourself to that lower inflammation state. So hopefully that helps you to sort of reframe how you can use foods, or I guess I should say eliminate some of the most common unhealthy foods and start addressing another piece of the anxiety puzzle. Thanks for joining me this evening.